The coffee shop where we met every Thursday had become our ritual. Natalie always arrived exactly 7 minutes late, clutching her leather messenger bag like it contained state secrets. That particular afternoon in October, she seemed different, more focused, almost predatory in her attention. "I need you to do something for me, James," she said, sliding a small black box across the table between our untouched lattes. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands. It was smooth, featureless except for a single button on top. "What is this?" "Just a test." Her green eyes held mine with unusual intensity. "Figure it out. Tell me what you think it does." "That's cryptic, even for you." She leaned back, crossing her legs beneath the table in a way that made me hyper-aware of the space between us. "Humor me. You're good at puzzles." Natalie worked in something she called behavioral analysis, a deliberately vague job title that I'd stopped asking about after our third date. We'd been seeing each other for 2 months, but she maintained careful boundaries, revealing herself in fragments, always keeping something back. I pressed the button. Nothing happened. "Keep trying," she said, sipping her coffee, watching me over the rim of her cup. I held it down longer. A faint vibration pulsed through the device. Then another. The pattern felt deliberate, short, long, short, short. Like Morse code, but not quite. "It's communicating something," I said. "What do you think it means?" I studied her face while pretending to focus on the device. There was something in her expression, anticipation mixed with something else. Excitement? Nervousness? Her fingers drummed against her cup in a rhythm that matched the device's pulses. "You're testing me," I said slowly. "But not the way you claim." A flicker of surprise crossed her features before she controlled it. "What makes you say that?" "Because you're more interested in my face than my hands right now." She smiled then, a real one that transformed her usually guarded expression. "Maybe you're better at this than I thought." Over the next hour, she watched me experiment with the device. Press and hold. Double tap. Shake it. Each action produced different patterns, different responses. But I became increasingly aware that the device itself was secondary. Natalie's reactions were the real puzzle. When I discovered that holding it against my chest produced a steady hum that matched my heartbeat, her breath caught audibly. When I pressed it to my temple and felt a warming sensation, she leaned forward unconsciously, lips parted. "What does it actually do, Natalie?" "Keep going," she whispered. "You're close." But close to what? The device's purpose remained unclear, but one thing had become crystal clear: this wasn't about the technology at all. It was about us. That night, lying in my apartment with the device on my nightstand, I couldn't stop thinking about Natalie's expression when I'd held it against different parts of my body. There had been hunger there, intellectual, yes, but something more primal underneath. My phone buzzed. Her text was characteristically minimal: "Tomorrow. My place. Bring it." I'd been to her apartment only once before, 3 weeks ago, when she'd needed help moving a bookshelf. She'd been nervous that day, ushering me out quickly after we'd finished. Now she was inviting me back, and the device was somehow the key. Friday evening arrived cold and sharp. Natalie's building was in the older part of downtown, all exposed brick and industrial windows. She answered the door in jeans and a soft gray sweater, hair loose around her shoulders instead of her usual tight bun. Casual Natalie was a rare sight. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. Her apartment reflected her mind, organized but layered with complexity. Books lined every wall, but they weren't arranged alphabetically or by genre. I noticed titles on neuroscience next to philosophy, quantum physics beside psychology. A large desk dominated one corner, covered in papers, diagrams, and 3 more devices like the one she'd given me. "You made these," I said, picking up one of them. "I designed them." "Someone else manufactures." She moved to stand beside me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something with bergamot and cedar. "But that's not why you're here." "Why am I here, Natalie?" She took the device from my hand and pressed it to her own chest. It pulsed 3 times, paused, then pulsed twice more. These measure biometric responses: heart rate, skin temperature, micro-expressions in muscle tension. They're designed to read people. Why give one to me? Because. She hesitated, vulnerability flashing across her features. I wanted to see how you'd react. What you'd do with it. Whether you'd be curious or cautious. Aggressive or gentle in your exploration. You were testing my character. I was testing compatibility. She set the device down, turning to face me fully. My work involves understanding people at a level most find uncomfortable. I needed to know if you could handle being understood that way. Being seen. The air between us felt charged, electric. And you surprised me. She stepped closer, her hand coming to rest on my chest, right over my heart. Most people, when they realize they're being analyzed, either shut down or perform. You stayed authentic. Playful, even. You started analyzing back. Her palm was warm through my shirt. I could feel my pulse accelerating beneath her touch, and from the slight smile on her lips, she felt it too. What happens now? I asked. Now, she said, reaching for the device again, I show you what they're really for. She pressed it into my hand, then placed my hand against her throat, just above her collarbone. The device pulsed urgently against my palm, picking up her elevated heartbeat. They don't just read responses, James. They share them. What you're feeling right now, she guided my other hand to her waist. I'm feeling too. The device warmed in my palm as it translated Natalie's biometric data into sensation. I could feel her pulse rapid, excited, as if it were my own. When her breath quickened, the device pulsed faster. This is what you've been working on, I said, understanding flooding through me. Empathy technology. Enforced vulnerability, she corrected softly. In my field, we spend so much time analyzing others that we forget how to actually connect. These devices force honesty. They make hiding impossible. She took my hand and led me to the couch, settling beside me with a confidence I'd never seen from her before. The careful, controlled Natalie was dissolving, revealing someone more raw and real underneath. I've watched you for weeks, James. Every Thursday, I tested you without you knowing. How you treated the barista. How you reacted when that man cut in front of you in line. Whether you'd helped the woman who dropped her papers. Small character tests disguised as coincidence. The entire time? I should have felt manipulated, but instead I felt curious. What were you looking for? Consistency. Kindness when no one's watching. The ability to be observed without changing who you are. She placed her hand over mine where it still held the device. Most people fail. They sense they're being watched and start performing a better version of themselves. But I didn't. You were the same person alone as you were with me. That's incredibly rare. She guided my hand with the device to her cheek. Do you feel that? The device registered a spike heat rising to her skin, subtle trembling. Nervousness and desire mixed together. You're scared, I said. Terrified. Her eyes met mine without blinking. Because I'm about to stop testing and start trusting. I'm going to let you see everything. She stood and retrieved a different device from her desk, larger, with a screen. This is the full version. It doesn't just measure responses, it displays them. Heart rate, respiratory patterns, arousal levels, stress markers. Everything I'm feeling, you'll see in real time. She activated it and set it on the coffee table between us, the screen glowing with live graphs and numbers. Why show me this? Because I'm tired of hiding. She moved closer, her knee touching mine. I've spent my entire career learning how to read people, but it's made me terrified of being read. I've kept everyone at a distance, including you. Especially you. Why especially me? Her hand found mine, fingers interlacing. On the screen, her heart rate spiked. Because you're the first person I've wanted to actually let in. And that's absolutely fucking terrifying. The profanity, so unlike her usual controlled speech, made me smile. "Show me, then. All of it." She kissed me then, slow and deliberate, and I watched the screen over her shoulder. Heart rate climbing. Skin temperature increasing. Every physiological response to desire displayed in precise data. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. "Your turn." She fitted a smaller sensor to my wrist, syncing it to the display. Now both our data streams appeared side by side, twin graphs of escalating response. "No more hiding," she whispered. "Not for either of us." The data streams danced together on the screen, two hearts beating faster, synchronized in their acceleration. Natalie's hands moved to my face, thumbs tracing my jawline while her eyes searched mine. "I need you to understand something," she said. "This isn't just about physical attraction. Watch the screen." She moved closer, lips nearly touching mine, but stopped. On the display, my arousal markers spiked, but so did hers equally, simultaneously. "See? Matched response. That's rare." She kissed me again, deeper this time, her body pressing against mine. The data confirmed what I could feel: this wasn't one-sided hunger. We were mirror images of want. Her fingers found the buttons of my shirt, working them open with surprising urgency. "For weeks, I've watched you on these screens. Heart rate when you looked at me. Pupil dilation when I leaned close. Micro-expressions when I smiled. I cataloged everything." "Sounds clinical," I said, helping her remove my shirt. "It was supposed to be." She traced patterns across my chest, watching my responses on screen. But somewhere in all that data, I stopped analyzing and started feeling. Your kindness wasn't performance. Your desire wasn't manipulation. You were just genuine. I pulled her sweater over her head, revealing skin scattered with freckles I'd never seen before. She shivered, from cold or anticipation. The screen couldn't distinguish. "Maybe both. What scared you most?" I asked, kissing her shoulder, her collarbone, the hollow of her throat where her pulse hammered visibly. "That I wanted this." Her hands tangled in my hair. "That all my careful observation had made me fall for you. That's not supposed to happen. I'm supposed to stay detached, objective. And now?" She pushed me back against the couch, straddling my lap with decisive movement. "Now I'm done pretending objectivity is possible with you." The device screen became a symphony of escalating responses. Every kiss, every touch, every whispered confession registered in precise measurements. But the data had stopped mattering. This was no longer an experiment. "Tell me what you want," I said, hands on her hips. "Everything." She rolled her hips against mine, and both our graphs spiked sharply. "I want to stop measuring and start experiencing. I want to be seen without analyzing being seen. I want." I kissed her, cutting off the words. She melted into it, control finally surrendering. Her careful facade crumbled completely, revealing someone desperate for connection, starving for intimacy without observation. We moved to her bedroom, leaving the devices and their screens behind. In the darkness, without data to interpret, we learned each other through touch instead of measurement. Her gasps and sighs told me more than any graph. The way she arched into my hands, the trembling of her thighs, the sound she made when I found sensitive places, these were the real data points. "I see you," I whispered against her ear as she clung to me, both of us teetering on the edge. "All of you. And you're extraordinary." She broke then, not just physically but emotionally, crying out my name as waves of release crashed through her. I followed moments later, holding her close as she shuddered in my arms. Afterwards, lying tangled together, she traced lazy circles on my chest. "The test was never about the device, you know." "I know. It was about whether I could trust you with my reality. My work. My compulsion to analyze and control. And can you?" She raised her head, eyes meeting mine in the dim light. "I already have." Morning light filtered through Natalie's curtains, casting geometric patterns across the bed. I woke to find her watching me, propped on one elbow, a small notebook in her free hand. "Are you taking notes on me sleeping?" I asked groggily. She had the grace to look sheepish. "Habit." But look, she showed me the page. Instead of analytical observations, she'd been sketching. A rough drawing of my face, peaceful in sleep. "I'm trying to observe differently. Less measurement, more appreciation." I pulled her down for a kiss. Progress. Over coffee in her kitchen, she explained more. The devices were part of a larger project studying authentic human connection in an age of digital distance and curated personalities. She'd been so consumed by research that she'd forgotten how to actually connect. "That's why the test," she said, hands wrapped around her mug. I needed to know if genuine connection was possible for me. If I could turn off the analysis and just feel. "And your conclusion?" "That I'd been approaching it backwards." She set down her coffee and took my hands. I thought I needed to stop analyzing to start feeling. But maybe the truth is that deep analysis and deep feeling aren't opposites. Maybe understanding someone completely is its own form of intimacy. "So you're saying your stalker tendencies are actually romantic?" She laughed, the sound unguarded and bright. "When you put it that way, it sounds creepy." "It's a little creepy," I admitted. "But also kind of amazing. You didn't just notice me, you studied me. You wanted to know if I was real." Everyone performs, James. Everyone curates and controls how they're perceived. But you didn't. Even when you realized I was watching, you stayed yourself. She squeezed my hands. "That's the rarest thing I've ever found." Later, she showed me the full scope of her research. The devices were prototypes for therapy applications, helping people recognize their own emotional patterns, building empathy by letting people feel others' experiences, creating accountability in relationships through shared biometric data. "Imagine couples therapy where both people's responses are visible in real time," she explained, eyes bright with passion. "No lying about feelings. No pretending. Just raw, honest reaction." Sounds terrifying. It is. But also liberating. Hiding takes so much energy. I understood then what the test had really been about. Natalie had spent years hiding behind analysis, terrified of being truly known. The device was her way of forcing herself to be vulnerable, to be seen completely, to trust that I wouldn't run when confronted with her absolute truth. "What happens now?" I asked. She smiled, the expression transforming her face. "Now we try something radical, a relationship without pretense. No games, no performance, no carefully managed impressions. Just two people who've decided that being fully known is worth the risk." That's a lot of pressure. It is. She moved to stand between my knees, hands on my shoulders. "But I've watched you, James. I've analyzed your patterns, studied your responses, catalogued your kindness. I know who you are when no one's looking. And that person? That person I want to know even better." I pulled her close, feeling her heartbeat against mine, no device necessary to sense the rhythm. "So this test of yours, did I pass?" "There was never a pass or fail." She kissed me softly. The test was seeing if I could handle being tested back. If I could let someone observe me as closely as I observe others. If I could stop controlling and start trusting. And you never tried to test me. You just accepted me, analysis, devices, stalker tendencies, and all. That's what I needed. She pulled back to look at me fully. Someone who doesn't need me to be different. Someone who finds the truth interesting instead of threatening. We spent the rest of the morning talking about everything we'd both been holding back. She told me about her childhood, about learning to read people as a defense mechanism in a chaotic home. I told her about my own walls, my tendency to keep people at a safe distance. "We're both hiding," I said. "Just in different ways." "Not anymore." She reached for one of her devices, then stopped. "Actually, we don't need that." She set it aside and took my hand instead. "Sometimes the most accurate measurement is just paying attention. Being present. Choosing to see someone. As she said it, I realized that's what she'd been doing all along. The devices, the tests, the careful observation, they weren't about control. They were about care. About wanting to truly know someone before risking her heart. So where do we go from here? I asked. She smiled, mischievous and warm. Now we figure it out together. No tests, no devices. Just us, learning each other the old-fashioned way. But maybe keep the devices around, I suggested. For special occasions. Her laugh was pure delight. I knew you'd understand. And I did. Because the truth wasn't that she'd tested me, it was that she'd trusted me with her reality. With her compulsions and her fears, her brilliant mind and vulnerable heart. Sometimes the truth isn't given. It's uncovered, layer by layer, through careful attention and genuine care. And sometimes, if you're lucky, being truly seen is the beginning of something extraordinary.